This story happened a month ago during a trip to nature, where we went with 3 families and children. We've been friends since college, and although most of us are about the same age, there are 2 wives who are younger than their husbands. My name is Amanda, and I was traveling with my husband Robert and our 8-year-old twins. One couple took a 7-year-old daughter with them, and the other took 2 sons, aged 7 and 8. Overall, our group suited each other perfectly. I was not indifferent to the one I had feelings for since I was a student. However, when we met again, he was happily married, and I had to come to terms with this reality. Later on, I met my husband, and over time, my earlier desires began to fade. New emotions emerged, and as family life settled into a routine, those memories only surfaced during trips that reminded me of the past. It was during these outings with our children that I found moments to connect with him more intimately, always mindful to keep things subtle in public to avoid raising my husband's suspicions. By then, the spark between my husband and me had diminished after many years of domestic challenges. He had let himself go, a stark contrast to the man I had fallen for a decade ago, who was always well-groomed and stylish. I recognize that part of this change is due to the demands of his job and the influence of his wife. He holds a prominent position in a local company and enjoys a level of success that my husband has yet to achieve. Despite this, I felt a strong attraction to him. The camping site was expansive, and I seized every opportunity to flirt or chat with him, always trying to be discreet. This vacation turned out to be a turning point for me. Upon our arrival, we set up our tents, a tradition for any getaway, and began grilling meat while enjoying some drinks. The children played nearby, bundled in blankets to keep from distracting one another. In the warm glow of the campfire and feeling slightly tipsy, my college friend's husband appeared even more attractive than usual, especially after a few drinks as we all started to drift off. My husband suggested it was time for bed, but I opted to stay by the fire a while longer. He agreed and helped our friends settle the kids before heading to our tent. With the campfire area now quiet, my attraction grew stronger. I noticed Derek seemed to feel the same and was in no rush to leave. He briefly walked his wife to their tent, as she had indulged a bit more than usual that night. Later, when the others had succumbed to the fatigue of travel and drinks, we found ourselves alone. I invited him to sit beside me on the blanket, and he happily accepted. He started to shower me with compliments, revealing that I'd been the subject of his dreams for as long as he could remember, and that I was far more beautiful than his wife. I was already captivated and eager to believe his words, especially since I had always found him appealing. I let myself be swept away by the moment. It felt like a scene straight out of a romance, with the forest surrounding us and the campfire flickering nearby. That is, until we had an unexpected audience. John, who had been peacefully resting in his tent with his wife, emerged to take care of some business. As he approached the campfire, he caught sight of us, smirked, and went on with his business without saying a word. We didn't address him at all. Knowing John was a reliable person, we were certain he wouldn't share what he saw. So we decided to seize the moment and carried on. The pleasure was short-lived when Mia got out of the tent, probably awakened by my husband, and went out into the fresh air. Being impulsive, Mia didn't hold back. Fortunately, she had the good sense not to scream or disturb our sleeping children, which we appreciated. In an instant, she burst into the tent, muttering accusations of betrayal to my husband. He jumped to his feet, still sleepy and annoyed that he had been woken up, and clearly did not understand the seriousness of the situation. Meanwhile, Derek and I have regained our composure. After making sure that my husband understood everything, Mia continued her tirade. She called for Gloria, trying to get her out of the tent, but her efforts were in vain. Gloria was too drunk to react coherently to attempts to wake her up. Maybe it's for the best. We will be able to explain everything more clearly to her when she wakes up and sobers up. Realizing that Mia was telling the truth, my husband wasted no time and attacked Derek, hitting him hard in the face. Then he grabbed me by the hair and dragged me into the tent. None of us who were to blame tried to justify our behavior. It became quite obvious that we could no longer live the way we had lived. I calmly asked him not to raise his voice so as not to wake the children, However, instead of shouting, he sat down next to me, buried his head in his hands, and started talking. There were insults and regrets about wasted years in his words. I turned out to be indifferent to all this. Then it dawned on me that I had brought him to this state. I realized that I should have acted much earlier, when Derek and his future wife had just started their relationship. It would be wiser to let go of a friend than to sacrifice your own happiness. And now, I was not only without her, but also without my man, who obviously would not be with me after all that had happened. There were so many mistakes in this trial. The next evening, the four of us gathered for a serious conversation, making sure that there were no unnecessary outsiders. Mia tried to break into the conversation with her unsolicited advice, but we quickly pushed her aside so as not to interfere. At the same time, Derek's wife remained calm and did not rush at me. I've always recognized my friend's strength. She's a resilient woman. The situation was completely chaotic, and we all couldn't find the words. Everyone just exchanged empty glances, full of resentment and silence, without raising the topic of divorce. Later, we came to the decision to divorce, giving each of us the opportunity to go our own way. After the events that happened, pretending to be an ordinary family was already unthinkable for each of us. In the interests of the children, we have decided to maintain visibility, regardless of our personal relationships. Our love for children is immeasurable. I understand that neither my husband nor my girlfriend will ever forgive me. But now that I have the opportunity to continue the relationship I've always dreamed of, I don't want them to pass me by. After returning, my husband and I began to exist as neighbors, and I tried to keep in touch with Derek. One day I set up a date with him, and during that time he opened up to me, admitting that he could no longer maintain the facade. He confessed that he had cheated on his wife, and this was not the first time. He repeated this scheme, which attracted me too. My heart was completely broken. In an instant, I lost everything that mattered to me. There were only the children left, and now the man I loved despised me for betraying him. It was only then that I began to understand the depth of the pain I had caused him. He's been my rock and support all these years, and I've given up everything for a fleeting fling. When I returned home that day, I tearfully begged my husband to forgive me for what I had done. I promised to do everything in my power to restore our relationship and admitted my grave mistake. In response, he sincerely told me that he still loves me, but he doubts that he will be able to forgive my act. I realized how devastating my betrayal was towards someone so close and dear to me. Thanks to my stupidity and selfishness, I lost everything. My children did not want to live with me. My friends looked at me with contempt, and my husband hated me. I've lost absolutely everything. A month later, our divorce took place. The children, the house, most of our property remained with my ex-husband. Besides, I now had to pay child support. The world has collapsed. I hope my story will help someone not to make such stupid mistakes. At this point, I can only wish the time would bring healing.